Yo, what's going on guys, it's Cynical and welcome back to another video. Today for you guys, I wanted to bring you another Rift Apart video because this is really cool. I've been wanting to talk about it for a little while now since stumbling across this and kind of bring it to more light, I suppose. Whether or not you've played Rift Apart, by the way, this does contain some spoilers, or of course you just simply missed this whilst going through the game for yourself. This is something that is really neat. So as most of you know, if you caught it for yourselves, or of course caught the video here on the channel, we talked about the Rhino, the super weapon in Rift Apart, and of course how it is different this time around compared to previous installments. The neat thing about the Rhino this time is it brings through objects and characters from different dimensions, namely dimensions that pertain to that of video game franchises, of course Sony-based ones. This is the likes of Sly from the Sly Cooper series, Jak and Daxter from the Jak and Daxter series, the Thunderjaw from the Horizon Zero Dawn series, objects from Uncharted, etc. Now, while the whole dimension thing is of course the major theme of Rift Apart, of course when looking at the Rhino and the different cool things that are brought through these rifts, it's mainly thought upon that a lot of these are just an Easter egg and a nice homage from Insomniac to give back to other PlayStation-known studios as a means to tie into the theme of Rift Apart with the whole dimension thing. However though, when listening to the Lorbs, the 12 different collectibles that are found within the planet of Savale, which serve as audio logs, where Lombax known as Mags was tasked with using the Dimensionator in order to find the perfect dimension so that the Lombax race could leave their dimension and go into hiding into a new one. This task was given to Mags by Canon, who is none other than Ratchet's father. This would mean that Mags would have to spend, as explained in the audio logs, about a year and a half going through multiple different dimensions. He mentions that it may take an infinite amount of time as there is an infinite amount of dimensions, but guarantees that it should only take about a year and a half to find the perfect one for the Lombax race. This should be noted that this is lore to the story of Ratchet and Clank. Of course in Rift Apart we never find out exactly what dimension the Lombax race ended up going to. I hope that for a future installment we kind of get a focus on that. Ratchet is still yet to find his family and find his race, but of course we do know that in the end Mags did end up finding the correct dimension, and that is hence where the Lombaxes are currently residing. So with that explanation out of the way, here comes the interesting part. As I said, these audio logs serve as Mags's research whilst he was exploring these different dimensions, and while he didn't end up recording audio logs for absolutely every dimension, as he explains himself, he'd be here for a while constantly recording stuff. He did in fact do a few audio diaries for a few of the different dimensions he did visit initially. If we go to entry 3, which is titled The First Dimension.
Mapped my first dimension today. Pretty standard stuff, except the colors there were so vivid, like whoa. And there were these creatures. One of them even looked like a Lombax, but he had smaller ears, a mask, and a cane, and I think he was pulling some kind of heist? Whatever it was, it looked cool.
The dimension that he visited is directly referring to that of the universe of Sly Cooper. He mentions that this dimension right here was very colorful, referring to the art style of Sly Cooper, as for one it is very cartoony and of course a cel-shaded type of aesthetic. That is him referring to the literal visual style of this universe. Of course he does mention that there was a creature there that looked like a Lombax but slightly different, had the pointy ears, and was wearing a mask, of course that being Sly Cooper. Entry number 4 is titled So Many Stories.
Second dimension down, not as colorful as the first one, but the creatures were definitely stranger. Their bodies were made out of all these old relics, but they could break apart and still be alive. It was so wild. And now I wish I had asked Caden for more time. I just want to learn the stories of all these dimensions.
He mentions here that it's not as colorful as the first one, but still possibly as colorful, and that there were creatures there that could fall into multiple different pieces, but still remain alive. This one here is referring to Knack. The next one right here is entry 5, which is titled Time Management.
Third dimension was cubes. Really smart cubes. Don't know what else to say there, except that I might have to stop doing these for every dimension I visit because there's a little bit less than an infinite amount left, and I could have mapped 32 in the time since I started talking. Okay, fine.
He mentions that there are a lot of cubes. I couldn't really catch on to exactly what one this was, so I just pretty much put in Cube PlayStation game and it came up with Intelligent Cube, which was actually developed by Sony Interactive Entertainment, so this one right here likely refers to that of Intelligent Cube. But my all-time favorite one, while the Sly Cooper one most certainly comes close, is entry number 7, titled Live Commentary.
I know I was going to stop doing these recordings, but I can carve out some time every once in a while. I'm a genius. Dimension 31X7, not super different from home, but there were these creatures. One was firing a gun and spinning himself around every other second, while the other hung out on his shoulder doing live commentary. Oh, I wanted to hang out with them so badly.
This dimension that he's referring to is Jak and Daxter's universe. At first he mentions that the world he visited isn't too different from theirs, which likely refers to the futuristic setting that Jak and Daxter is set in when looking at Jak 2 and Jak 3, and that he came across two creatures. One was jumping around spinning with a gun, which is clearly Jak. This is the famous move that players would end up absolutely abusing in Jak 2 and Jak 3 when using the yellow blaster gun. You would jump, shoot, and spin to send bullets flying absolutely everywhere, killing everything in the general area. Out of everything they could have included in specifically the Jak log, they decided to mention an abused player mechanic, which I think is so hilarious, and that there was a creature sitting on this other creature's shoulder, Jak, giving live commentary, who is of course Daxter, as that's what he does. He's constantly giving commentary to whatever's happening. This literally means that Jak and Daxter, Sly Cooper, Knack, and I guess that Intelligent Cube thing are directly part of the Ratchet and Clank lore. I guess you could go ahead and say that, technically speaking then, because of the fact that Mags ended up visiting so many dimensions before he finally found the perfect one for the Lombaxes to escape to, probably came across most, if not all, of the PlayStation universes. Technically meaning that perhaps any of the Sony video games are canonically attached to that of Ratchet and Clank, or perhaps we could go even further and say literally every single video game in history is canonically connected to Ratchet and Clank. I mean, can you imagine if Mags found himself on the shore of Destiny Islands, or if this dude found himself in Yharnam from Bloodborne? Oh my god. Although you might consider this really a little homage or an Easter egg, it's not really, considering that these audio logs are lore. I mean, for God's sake, the audio logs are called lorbs. They're orbs with lore. Dang it, Insomniac, you made me smile with that one. I think it's simply an ingenious way of Insomniac giving an homage, but underneath it all, giving a little nod to say, hey, yeah, actually, if you think about it, these other video game universes have at one stage been a part of the Ratchet and Clank lore. I think it is absolutely beautiful. Look, I'm not trying to say that we're gonna have Nathan Drake come out of nowhere and slap Dr. Nefarious for the 18th time, whip it over to Wampa Island and go Tokyo drifting with Crash Bandicoot. We'll get chucked into some kind of interdimensional arena with a raccoon and some kind of pissed off, angry, angsty guy. Wait a minute. Hang on a minute. So that's all for today's video, guys. I thought I'd just bring this to your dude's attention, just in case some of you guys missed out on this. I would love to know what you guys think in the comments section down below. However, guys, I'm Cynical. Hopefully you're having a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.